People say time flows. They say it like it's obvious, like water in a river, sliding from the past into the future, carrying us along whether we like it or not. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Nothing in physics actually says that time flows at all. Look closely and you'll notice something strange. The equations that describe the universe don't care which way time goes. Run them forward, run them backward, they still work. At the deepest level we understand, the universe doesn't know the difference between yesterday and tomorrow. So why does your life feel like a one-way street? Why do memories pile up behind you but never ahead? Why can you remember breakfast but not next week? Here's the part that should bother you. If physics doesn't contain a moving now, then the feeling that time is passing is not coming from the universe. It's coming from you. That means the flow of time, the thing you trust more than almost anything else, may not be a property of reality at all. It may be a trick of perception, a side effect of how brains store information and how disorder increases. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Because if time doesn't flow, then what exactly are we moving through? Why time flowing is not in the laws of physics. People talk about time as if it's a thing that moves. They say it passes, they say it flows, they say it runs out, and nobody ever stops to ask the obvious question, where is it flowing from? And where exactly is it going? If you're going to claim that something flows, then you ought to be able to point to a speed, a direction, and a mechanism. Water flows because of pressure differences. Heat flows because of temperature gradients. Electric current flows because of voltage. In every case, there's a clear reason. But when physicists write down the laws of nature, the real ones, the equations that actually work, there is no term anywhere that says, and now time starts moving. That should make you uneasy. Let's begin with something simple. Newton's laws. You can take them and replace time t with dash t, and the equations still work perfectly. A ball rolling across the floor obeys the same rules, whether you imagine it going forward in time or backward. The math doesn't flinch, it doesn't complain, it doesn't say, hey, that's illegal. Now maybe you say, fine, that's old physics. So let's move to better physics. Maxwell's equations, electricity and magnetism, same story. They don't care which way time goes. Schrodinger's equation in quantum mechanics, same thing. Reverse time, and the equation remains valid. Even Einstein's equations of general relativity, the equations that describe space and time themselves, do not contain a built-in arrow of time. That's not a philosophical statement. That's a mathematical one. So here's the first shock. The fundamental laws of physics do not describe time as something that flows. Yet your experience screams the opposite. You feel time moving. You feel it dragging on during a boring lecture and racing by when you're having fun. You feel the past locked behind you and the future completely inaccessible. That feeling is so strong that you never question it. But physics does. And whenever physics disagrees with intuition, intuition eventually loses. The missing now, let's talk about the present moment, the now. You feel like there is a sharp dividing line between past and future, and that you're balanced right on it, a glowing point called now that moves steadily forward, carrying you along. But go look for that now in the equations. You won't find it. There is no universal present in physics, no master clock ticking for the cosmos, no official moment that the universe agrees is happening right now. In Einstein's relativity, what counts as now for one observer may already be in the past or future for another. Two people moving relative to each other will disagree on whether two distant events happened at the same time, and neither of them is wrong. That's not a bug, that's reality. So if the universe itself doesn't agree on what now means, then the idea that time is globally flowing through a shared present starts to fall apart. You might think, okay, maybe time flows locally. Maybe my now is special. But that doesn't help either. Physics does not privilege your experience. The equations don't care about you, your memories, or your feeling of being carried along by time. They describe events, what happens and where not, a moving spotlight of existence. In other words, the universe doesn't know what moment it's in. That should worry you. A film that plays without a direction. Imagine a perfect movie of the universe. Every particle, every field, every interaction recorded with absolute precision. Now imagine playing that film backward. In most cases, the backward movie obeys the same physical laws as the forward one. Collisions still conserve energy. Forces still behave correctly. Nothing breaks. From the perspective of the equations, both films are equally valid. So here's the uncomfortable implication. Physics allows the universe to work just as well backward as forward. Yet you never see broken glasses reassemble themselves. You never see smoke jump back into a cigarette. You never see heat spontaneously flow from cold to hot. Why not? If the laws don't forbid it, why doesn't it happen? This is where most people make a mistake. They assume the arrow of time must be fundamental, built into reality itself. It isn't. The arrow of time is not in the basic rules. It comes from something else entirely. And that something else is going to quietly dismantle your idea of time as a flowing thing. Entropy, the sneaky imposter. Enter entropy. Entropy is often described badly, so let's clean it up. Entropy is not disorder in some vague poetic sense. It's a precise quantity that counts how many microscopic arrangements correspond to the same macroscopic situation. There are many more ways for things to be messy than neat, many more ways for energy to be spread out than concentrated, many more ways for a room to be warm than for all the heat to be politely sitting in one corner. Because of that, systems overwhelmingly move from states with fewer possibilities to states with more possibilities. That tendency, not a law of motion, but a law of probability, gives us the arrow of time. The second law of thermodynamics says entropy tends to increase, not because the universe wants it to, but because it's statistically unavoidable. And here's the key point. Entropy increasing makes time appear directional. But entropy is not time. It's a property of physical states. Time itself doesn't flow. Entropy does. Why your brain is to blame. Now comes the part that really stings. Your experience of time flowing is not evidence about the structure of the universe. It's evidence about how your brain works. Your brain is a physical system that records information. Memories are stored by increasing entropy, chemical changes, electrical activity, irreversible processes. You remember the past because the act of remembering leaves physical traces. You don't remember the future because there are no traces yet. So your brain constructs a story, a remembered past, an unrecorded future, and a fleeting present where information is being written. That story feels like time flowing, but it's not. It's information flowing. The universe isn't marching forward. Your memory is accumulating backward. Once you see this, the illusion becomes obvious. Time feels like it flows because you are a system that keeps records in one direction only. If your brain worked the other way, if it remembered the future instead of the past, your entire sense of time would reverse, and physics would not object. The dangerous question. So here's the question nobody likes to ask. If the laws of physics don't contain a flowing time, if the present isn't universal, if the arrow comes from entropy, not motion, then what exactly is time? Is it a dimension like space? Is it a bookkeeping parameter? Is it an emergent illusion? And if it doesn't flow, then what does it mean to say that you are moving through it? That question is where things start to get genuinely uncomfortable. Because once you stop thinking of time as something that moves, you're forced to reconsider change, causality, and even what it means for something to exist. A universe without a moving now. Let's get rid of something that feels absolutely essential. The idea of now. You are convinced there is a present moment, a thin, glowing slice of reality that separates the past from the future, sliding forward like a blade through the universe. You feel yourself riding on it, moment by moment. But physics doesn't know what you're talking about. In relativity, time is treated the same way as space, not metaphorically, literally. Events are labeled by coordinates, 3 for space, 1 for time, and that's it. There is no special label that says, this event is happening now. The universe doesn't highlight any. Think about 2 events far apart in space. One observer might say they happened at the same time. Another observer, moving relative to the first, will say one happened before the other. There is no experiment you can perform to decide who is correct. They both are. That means simultaneity. The idea that distant events share a common present is not real in any absolute sense. So if there's no universal agreement on what's happening now, then the notion of a globally moving present collapses. And once that goes, the idea of time flowing goes with it. The block universe. The idea nobody likes. Physicists have a name for what replaces it. The block universe. It sounds dramatic, but it's actually very dull. The universe is treated as a 4-dimensional structure. All events past, present, and future are just there. Not becoming, not unfolding. Just existing as part of the structure. Your birth, this sentence, your death, all are equally part of the space-time description. People hate this idea because it feels like it destroys free will and turns life into a frozen sculpture. But physics doesn't care how ideas make you feel. In the block universe picture, nothing is flowing. There's no cosmic projector advancing frames. The universe doesn't happen. It simply is. So why does it feel like things are happening? That's the crucial question. Motion without flow. Here's a useful analogy. Imagine a road stretching from one city to another. The road itself doesn't move, but you can move along it. Different locations correspond to different experiences. Time works the same way in relativity. You don't move through time because time is flowing. You move along a time-like path because you are a physical object with a trajectory in space-time. Your feeling of motion doesn't come from the road moving. It comes from your position changing. Now here's the subtle point most people miss. You don't experience many moments all at once. You experience correlations between states of your brain along your world line. Each state contains records of earlier states. That creates continuity, but continuity is not flow. It's structure. Why the future feels open? If the future already exists in the block universe, why does it feel uncertain? Because you don't know it. Uncertainty is not about existence. It's about information. When you roll a die, the outcome exists as a definite physical state once it lands, but before you look, you don't know which one it is. The uncertainty is in your knowledge, not in the die. The same is true of the future. Your lack of access to future information makes it feel unreal. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist as part of the space-time structure. Physics does not require the future to be open. It only requires that you can't see it. And you can't see it because information doesn't travel backward to you. Causality survives the funeral. At this point, people panic and say, if the future already exists, then causes don't matter. That's nonsense. Causality doesn't require time to flow. It only requires consistent relationships between events. In space-time, causes come before effects along time-like paths. That ordering is preserved even if the whole structure exists at once. The fact that the road exists doesn't mean you can teleport to the destination without driving. Similarly, the existence of future events doesn't mean you can influence them arbitrarily. Your actions are part of the structure that produces them. You are not watching a movie. You are in the movie. Why this feels so wrong? Your brain evolved to operate inside the illusion. It compresses information, throws away details, and constructs a narrative with a moving present because that's useful for survival. It lets you plan, react, and remember. Evolution doesn't care whether your picture of reality is accurate. It cares whether it works. The idea of time flowing works very well for apes trying to avoid predators. It works very poorly for understanding the universe. The crack in the illusion, once you accept that time doesn't flow, something strange happens. Change stops being something that happens. It becomes something that is, events don't come into existence. They are ordered. And the feeling of passage, the sense that now is special, becomes what it really is, a feature of consciousness, not of physics. This doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it precise. Because if moments don't disappear when they're over, then nothing is truly lost. Every laugh, every mistake, every quiet thought remains part of the structure forever. That's not poetic. That's physics taking away your metaphors. Why change feels irreversible, and why that's not time's fault. If time doesn't flow, if the universe doesn't privilege a now, then here's the question that refuses to go away. Why does everything only seem to happen one way? Why do eggs break but never unbreak? Why does smoke spread out but never gather itself back into a cigarette? Why do you remember yesterday but not tomorrow? If the laws of physics allow motion both forward and backward in time, then this one-way behavior shouldn't exist. But it does. And the reason has nothing to do with time itself. The trap of reversibility at the microscopic level, atoms, molecules, particles, the rules are almost perfectly reversible. If you filmed individual particles colliding and played the film backward, you would struggle to tell which direction was correct. The equations don't care. But the moment you zoom out to large collections of particles, something sneaky happens. Not a new force, not a new law, just numbers, an enormous number of them. Probability beats law every time. Take a simple system, a box divided in half with gas molecules all squeezed into one side. That's a very special arrangement. There are not many microscopic ways to make that happen. Now remove the divider. The gas spreads out. Could it, in principle, all rush back into one side again? Yes. The laws of physics allow it. Will it? No. Not in the lifetime of the universe. Why? Because there are astronomically more ways for the gas to be spread out than clumped together. Spread out states dominate. Clumped states are rare. The system doesn't want anything. It simply drifts toward what is overwhelmingly likely. This drift from rare states to common ones is what we call entropy increasing. And entropy doesn't push things forward in time. It just makes some arrangements vastly more probable than others. Irreversibility is a statistical illusion. This is the part people find hardest to accept. The arrow of time is not a fundamental arrow. It is a statistical trend. Broken cups don't stay broken because time forces them to. They stay broken because there are more broken arrangements than unbroken ones. You never see a shattered glass jump back together for the same reason. You never see all the air in a room spontaneously gather in one corner. It's not forbidden, it's just absurdly unlikely. Time didn't do this. Probability did. Why memory only works one way. Now let's connect this to you. Memory formation is an irreversible process. Recording information requires energy dissipation. Neurons fire, molecules rearrange, heat leaks out. Every memory you store increases entropy. That means memory creation is aligned with the entropy gradient of the universe. You remember the past because the past left physical traces. You don't remember the future because it hasn't left traces yet. Your brain doesn't ride the flow of time. It rides the growth of entropy. So your sense of direction past behind you, future ahead, is really just your brain tracking where records exist. The illusion of becoming. Here's the subtle trick. Because your brain contains records of earlier states, but not later ones, it constructs a story. Things are becoming. But from the space-time perspective, nothing is becoming anything. All states already exist as part of the structure. Your consciousness samples them in sequence, each state containing information about previous ones. That sequence feels like motion, but motion does not require flow. Why the future feels empty. People say the future doesn't exist yet. That's not what physics says. Physics says the future doesn't contain records yet. No footprints, no memories, no photographs. So it feels unreal. But absence of information is not absence of existence. You don't experience the future for the same reason you don't see behind your head. Not because there's nothing there, but because your sensory system isn't wired that way. A dangerous thought experiment. Imagine a creature whose brain forms memories in the opposite entropy direction. It would remember what we call the future and forget what we call the past. To that creature, your past would feel unreal, and your future would feel fixed and familiar, and physics would not object. That should tell you something important. The direction of time you experience is not dictated by reality. It's dictated by how information is stored. So let's put it all together. The laws of physics don't include a flowing time. The universe doesn't agree on a universal present. Irreversibility comes from probability, not motion. Memory aligns with entropy, not with time itself, which means the flow of time, the thing that feels most obvious, is not a fundamental feature of the universe. It's a side effect, a very convincing one. Free will in a universe where time doesn't flow. At this point, most people stop listening, not because the argument is unclear, but because they're afraid of where it leads. If the future already exists, if time doesn't flow, if the universe is a block of events rather than a story unfolding, then what happens to free will? Do your choices still matter? Or are you just reading lines already written? This question feels philosophical, but the mistake people make is treating free will as a physics problem. It isn't. Physics doesn't tell you what you should do. It tells you what can happen. The wrong question. People usually ask, if the future exists, can I change it? That question assumes the future is something separate from you, like a destination waiting for you to arrive. But that's already wrong. You are not outside the universe, peeking in. You are part of the space-time structure itself. Your decisions are not reactions to the future. They are among the events that define it. The future is not written despite your choices. It is written through them. Determinism is not a puppet show. Let's be precise. Determinism means that given the state of the universe at one moment, the laws of physics fix what happens next. It does not mean you are forced against your will. Your thoughts don't matter. Choices are illusions. Your thoughts are physical processes. Your deliberations are part of the causal chain. When you choose coffee instead of tea, that choice didn't come from nowhere, but it came from you, your preferences, memories, brain chemistry, and circumstances. Nothing was bypassed. Nothing was overridden. Freedom is not randomness. People sometimes say, if it's all determined, then free will must require randomness. That's nonsense. Randomness doesn't give you control. It takes it away. If your decisions were the result of quantum coin flips, that wouldn't make you more free. It would make you less responsible. Free will is not about escaping causality. It's about being the cause, and you are. why the block universe doesn't trap you. In the block universe picture, all events exist, including your choices. But they don't exist without explanation. They exist because of explanations. Your decision to act comes from reasons. Those reasons come from earlier states, and the consequences follow. The chain remains intact. The only thing that disappears is the fantasy that the universe is waiting to see what you'll do. It isn't waiting. It already includes you doing it. The illusion of openness. The future feels open because you don't know it. Openness is epistemic about knowledge, not ontological about existence. You don't know what you'll choose tomorrow, but tomorrow already includes you choosing it. That doesn't make the choice meaningless. It makes it inevitable once it happens. And inevitability after the fact is not the same as coercion before it. Responsibility survives. Here's the test. If someone commits a crime, do we excuse them because the universe obeys physical laws? Of course not. Responsibility depends on whether actions flow from a person's intentions, reasoning, and character, not on whether physics is deterministic. And all of that survives perfectly well in a timeless universe. The real discomfort, what actually bothers people is this. If time doesn't flow, then life is not a journey from nothing to something. It's a pattern, a complete one. That idea feels cold until you realize something important. Nothing you do is erased by time passing. Moments don't vanish. They don't slide into oblivion. They remain part of the structure forever. Every kindness, every mistake, every quiet thought you thought nobody noticed, they're all there. What you really are, you are not a traveler carried along by time. You are a four-dimensional pattern extended in time the way a road is extended in space. Your life is not something that happens. It is something that exists. And your choices are not threatened by that picture. They are what give it shape. If time doesn't flow, why anything still matters. If time doesn't move, if moments don't disappear, if the universe isn't going anywhere, then here's the last question people don't know how to ask properly. Why does anything feel urgent? Why does love feel fragile? Why does regret hurt? Why does wasting time feel like a crime if time isn't being spent at all? If everything already exists in the space-time structure, why do we care what happens next? This is where people expect physics to kill meaning. It doesn't. Urgency is not about motion. Urgency doesn't come from time flowing away. It comes from constraints. You are a physical system with a limited structure. You can't occupy all parts of space-time at once. You only experience one slice of your world line at a time. That limitation is not a bug. It's the whole point. A book doesn't lose meaning because all its pages exist at once. The story matters because you can only read one page at a time. Your life is no different. Why moments feel precious? Moments don't matter because they vanish. They matter because they are specific. You can't replace one with another. You can't swap them out. That laugh happened there. That mistake happened then. That choice happened once at a particular location in space-time. Uniqueness doesn't require disappearance. Meaning survives timelessness. People think meaning requires time to flow, like money being spent. It doesn't. Meaning comes from relationships between events, cause and effect, intention and outcome, effort and consequence. Those relationships are still there in a block universe. In fact, they're clearer. Nothing is washed away. Nothing is overwritten. Your actions don't fade, they define the structure. Why death still matters. Here's the hardest part. If your entire life exists as a four-dimensional pattern, death is not erasure. But that doesn't make it trivial. Death marks the boundary of experiences along your world line. Beyond it, there are no more thoughts, no more memories, no more questions. That boundary matters because experience is local. Eternity, existing somewhere else in space-time, doesn't give you more moments to live. The last illusion to fall is this one. That meaning comes from moving towards something. It doesn't. Meaning comes from being something somewhere in the structure. You don't live to outrun time. You live to shape the pattern you already are. So here's the conclusion, stripped of poetry. Time does not flow. The universe does not update itself. The present is not universal. The arrow comes from entropy and memory. Free will survives because you are the cause. Meaning survives because relationships survive. And the feeling that time is slipping through your fingers, that's not a cosmic truth. That's consciousness doing what it evolved to do. Track change, store records, and tell a story from the inside. The universe doesn't rush. You do, and that's enough.